Happy Sunday afternoon to everybody. And it's a rainy day here in Houston, and it's kind of a still day. I don't know if you know what I mean by that, as far as how that feels, right? The rain has come down, and it's been a soft rain. It's not been like a hard, aggressive storm. I'd call it an assertive storm, but still, it's that stillness, and it's a great day for stillness of thought. And I've also known that I needed to I wanted to do a video to catch everybody up on what's going on with my house, what's going on in my life, and really how I tackle these hardships. And believe me, there are some hardships. A lot of self-confrontation, having to pull up a lot of old behaviors, ways of dealing with things that in the past were more my nemesis than they were a benefit, but now I've refined them. And I get to use them, my warrior mode, or as one of my coaches says, I'm not a warrior anymore, I'm a victor. And I'm coming at this from a victor stance, and I am. But, what I really wanted to talk about today is that, almost every single time, I guarantee if you went to people who you think or you see in your world are just highly successful and really seem to have their life together and everything else, they can tell you monumental, life-changing stories of when they went to take on themselves and be all they are in the world, how everything you could imagine horrific started happening to them. So that's kind of what this is about, because I want to catch things up and kind of share how I'm making it through all of this to see if, it might be a benefit to you, it might be inspiring, it might be real, it might be triggering, it might be something that you say, wow, I've been there, right? And lots of times we hide these things. We show the glory of our victor, but we don't show the battles that we won to get there, right? So, and this is a battle. It's a battle. And so I'll tell you, the very first battle I had was really the initial battle in my life, is how I see it. The initial chaos, crisis that happened when I was moving to take myself to a different level. And it became it's what woke me up. So, I've spoke before about, as a child, I was bullied, I was ostracized, I always felt like I was on the outside of everything. And I never really kind of took it personally, even though it impacted me. I didn't walk around in life going, wow, I'm ostracized and I'm outside the world. If anything, the hurt that came from it was why. I just didn't understand, right? I really was this kid an overthinker, but I was this little transcendentalist, I loved everything. I loved a rock. I loved how ants built their ant mounds. I loved the effort that it took for birds to fly and the beauty of it, and watching a bud bloom, even on a tree or, a flower, anything like that. And I even loved the cycle of how everything fed itself. So even as that flower bloomed and provided pollen and then it died and blah, blah, blah. I loved all of that. And that was kind of my buffered world. That was the world that I went to that made up all of who I was. And I get it was strange now. I get it was strange and weird for a lot of people. So they didn't understand it, and I felt ostracized. And so my very first crisis was a wake up at 15. It was like the universe saying to me, you don't get to live in this world that we've let you have out in the solitude of nature, talking to trees and talking to birds and animals and rocks and the clouds and the sky and the air around you. Because all of that flowed in harmony, even if the harmony meant some sour, sharp notes or, flat notes. It still meant harmony. It was still a beautiful song. And I needed a wake up. Not that I needed a wake up, but I got one. And I got one that prepared me for some pretty hard hurdles that would come later on in life. So literally all in one day, and I'll just encapsulate into this. This is written in my book that I'm writing, the whole story in detail. But I'll just tell you, in one day, my mother and father were separated, and in one day, my father came home, and I wasn't there at the time. I was down the street. We lived out in the country, and I actually happened to be walking our pet raccoon. I'm talking about we were living in the country. And I was visiting the neighbor, and my big sister came roaring up in her little truck, and said, get in now. Just get in now. No explanation. And we were close enough. I trust, just get in now. And as she drove me back to our house, which was, maybe a block or two away, and she kind of told me what was going on. My father had come to the house, grabbed all of his guns, and we didn't know if he was going to try to find my mother and shoot the guy that she was dating, shoot her, or if he was going to do something to himself. I am, and I've said, I'm highly empathic, intensely empathic, and highly intuitive. So I knew he hadn't gone to these other places. Something told me, we lived out in the country, and there were these logging roads. Something said, go to this logging road. He's at this logging road. And so I got on my bike, and I went to this logging road, and I remember seeing my father's white Ford pickup truck and stopping about 100 yards from the truck to make myself, I've always felt like I've been very divinely guided. And it was like the universe said, stop for a second. And I thought in my head, Donna, you could be walking up to a truck with your father's brains splattered all over them. Prepare yourself. I had to do it. I was going to do it. There was no doubt, but I had to stop and prepare myself. When I walked up to the truck, I didn't find him, thank God. I found his suicide note, but I didn't find him. I can still tell you today what that suicide note said, but I won't. And I ran out into these acres and acres of pines and knew that screaming, Daddy, trying to find him, and realized practicality-wise I wasn't going to be able to cover these thousands of acres. But anyway, fast forward, I swear, this story is in my book, and I'll share it at another time in more depth, but right now, today is not the day. So anyway, in that day, I was dealing with that, and then at one point I go back to my house because my friend and I are going to get our horses, and we're going to go, my best friend Kristen, and we were going to go hunt the woods. We're going to go hunt the woods. And the police ran us out, said I couldn't hunt for my father, and I had a few choice words, and we went back to the house because people were saying that my mother needed me now. And I went into the master bedroom where there were like 4 or 5 adults from the neighborhood there, and they said, Donna, we need you to help with your mother. Now the really crux of everything here is, prior to that, I felt like I was just a leaf in a stream. And besides just doing chores and doing the things that a kid did, and kind of lived in this buffer world and lived in my own nature world of transcendentalism, I really wasn't living life as it really presents. And on that day, so I go into the closet, I go into that bedroom. They're saying my mother needs me. My mother was in the closet, supposedly having a mental breakdown, and she thought she was a toddler again, like 2 or 3, and she spoke of us kids like we were dolls. And this was all new to me. I'd never been confronted with this level of drama. My parents, I thought, were like June and Ward Cleaver, but it's really because of the lack of communication and the lack of expression that they shared, that they just kept everything stuffed and quiet, that I didn't even know they were having problems when they got separated. So that was a new thing for me. And so I didn't know anything that was going on in my world. I didn't know my mother's feelings. I didn't know my father's feelings. And now all of a sudden in one day, I'm getting a crash course, and I'm having to go in and I'm having to try to figure out how to communicate with my mother. And thank God for my empathy and my intuition, because I just kind of kept talking to her. Now, fast forward years later, literally about 5 or 6 years ago, my mother admitted to me that she was faking all of that because she was mad that my dad was getting all the attention for his emotions, and she felt like her emotions had been stuffed for so long. Okay, so blah, blah, blah. But point is after I came out of that closet and these adults surrounded me, I remember thinking, I felt like I was in this bubble. And they were all talking to me saying, Donna, you got to handle this now. You've got to handle this now. And I remember thinking, and I'm not going to excuse my language, this is kind of how I talk sometimes, as an illustrative way. And I remember thinking, fuck, I've been living in a world of adults that I thought, right, this is the moment that you wake up as a kid and you realize your parents aren't gods. You're supposed to wake up earlier in life to this, but I just woke up then. Your parents aren't gods, and they're not perfect, and they're broken people too. At that moment, that's not kind of what I was thinking, but I had been delusional in that world, and I felt like I was in this bubble. And the universe was just holding me in this bubble because I looked down, and everything I'd ever known was gone. I was just suspended in this void. and it was dark, and I felt like Alice in Wonderland, and I could have been falling in it. Like it was like I was in this bubble and the universe was suspending me and holding me still so that I wouldn't fall, but it gave me the sensation of me falling and all of earth opening up and me falling into this chasm of darkness. And I remember as I did, I remember thinking, fuck, nobody around me knows what to do. Nobody else but me. Me, innocent, sweet, goodness, me who didn't, nobody else saw that. They saw a stubborn, defensive child. But now all of a sudden this is all mine and you guys don't know what to do? And that hardship, that crisis, that initial major crisis basically cracked open my virginity to the world being innocent. And that my innocence and my goodness was going to grow somehow in this world and stay in that state of innocence and goodness. No, the universe is preparing me for, if you stay in this state, it's going to chew you up. Like you got to get some tools and skills behind you. So anyway, fast forward. So we're talking about crisis when you're trying to build. So fast forward after college, the trauma there as far as the couple of very aristocratic, high level guys in college that raped me. And then you fast forward and then you go through 10 years of domestic violence relationship. And basically I was just a leaf. I was not living in myself, and the world was throwing me left and right and left and right. My innocence and my goodness was taking me into places of trust that I shouldn't have trusted. Now, I'm not blaming myself for any of these situations. Certainly not blaming myself for being in the wrong place or something at the wrong time in the rape. Is it the wrong place at the wrong time being in your apartment complex at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday? No, it's not. And I didn't invite the domestic violence. I might have been a prime candidate for it at the time, but I didn't invite it. So fast forward. I'm out of that relationship. I'm in a new relationship, and we're starting a business, and I'm working in corporate America and, doing fine, doing well, moving, forward. And then in October 15th of 1998, which October 15th is a very interesting date in our family. A lot of good things and bad things have happened on that date. My older sister collapsed and suffered from lack of oxygen. I won't go into the whole story of what led up to that, but that crisis happened, and I had just struck out. My husband had just struck out on wanting to start Christmas tree lots in Houston, and I didn't know anything about business. And when she collapsed, that's what we were building, and I knew there was no way I was going to get her help at a neuro rehab center, which was probably about $20,000 or $30,000 a month. Some might have even been $60,000 a month, right? And this was in 1998, so that's a lot of money. I knew I was going to get that money and be able to help her in a corporate job. So I literally took on business and I quit my corporate job. Not a safety net, nothing. But that crisis happened. And that crisis went on for 16 years. But that crisis happened October 15th, 1998. Around Christmas in January of 1999, my mother's house burnt down and had my grandmother in it. And I handled all of that with my mother. She handled the actual hardships of it all. She went through it all, but I handled the insurance. I handled the funeral of my grandmother, all of those other things. So here was another crisis, that here I'm in business and I'm doing something great and something wants to come in to impede everything. At the same time, like I said, my sister's living in a nursing home now. At that point in time, it was still new, and so she was still in ICU, and she was in a coma. So they didn't even know the state of her brain. And I will say that the night before Thanksgiving, the first year that we were opening our lots, so Thanksgiving is a huge Christmas tree buying day. And the night before, my mother called and said that my sister had woke up, and she said my name. And I remember crying and crying and crying and crying and saying, if the universe did that, if she did that for me, I'll do my damnedest and best for her. I will find her help. I'll find whatever. That's what I thought at the time, right? It didn't quite work out that way. Her path was a little differently, and her path was her path, and her karma was her karma, and it was painful to watch. But you fast forward, and any single time that I went to take on something great for me to shine in the world as Donna, authentically as all she is, bam, catastrophic happenings. Take the wind out of you, knock your knees out from underneath you, take you down to your knees, to where you feel like you just can't go on. And I have been procrastinating on making my coaching business an official, bona fide, supply all of my income, make me happy. It feeds my soul when I coach other people. As much as it'll feed them, their soul, it feeds mine. And I had been procrastinating on it, putting it aside, not making it the most important, not seeing it as valuable as the universe was wanting to have me see it. And it had been saying this all along to me. So I'm not going to go into the explaining of how the universe talks to me. We can talk about that another time. And if you have questions about that, write me, and I will be happy to sit down and do a session with you and tell you how. Happy. You're going to want to know more after that, but still happy, because I can give you the monikers of the things to start to trust hearing your voice of your soul, and the guidance of it, and how it'll always steer you right, and how the world and the powers that be will still try to tear you down. But that's a long series, and I probably should do a workshop on it or a webinar on it or something like that. But every single time. So here I am, right? So here I am, going through a pandemic, good corporate job, but it had started moving into a bad place. And I'm procrastinating on building and doing the right things, finding the right people to help get me to where I want to be, being afraid that I'm not going to be able to do it, that it's not going to turn out, and I'm going to find out that this thing that the universe kept telling me, you need to go here, you need to go here, you need to go here before you die, even if it's the last thing you do 24 hours before you die. You need to be all of you in the world, vulnerable, humble, good, show the world who you are, good, bad, indirect, ugly, direct, ugly, show all parts of yourself, just be totally vulnerable, Donna. And I just kept procrastinating on it. So then, lo and behold, of course, last year in June, I get laid off. I look at my finances, I see that I've got enough money to make it for a year. And of course, thank God for unemployment. I've been able to not have to dip into that money, so I still have another year to go before really being in that, really taking that step off that cliff. But the hardships. So here I am, 6 months ago. I start generating and finding the people to help me build the things that I need to build, to put myself out there fully. And what happens? The winter storm, and all of the things that have come with it. So, February 16th, the first date of the claim of the water damage. Hire a contractor on February 20th. Promises, right? And there's nothing necessarily wrong with the contracting company. It's just that we know that you fluff up, I don't in my sales, but you fluff up things and we'll handle all the insurance for you, and we'll handle this, and we'll handle that, and it'll all go smooth, and it should only take 4 to 6 weeks, and all this other stuff. I knew that wasn't true. My instincts kept saying, no, it's going to be 4 to 6 months, Donna. And the universe kept saying that, and it was like it was saying, prepare, because I can be a driver, and I always say I'm a recovered pusher. In other words, pushing life to the result I want. Because often I found that when I pushed life to the result I wanted, I missed out on the greater result that was going to happen if I had let go. Been a part of it and flowed with it, but had let go. So being confronted with that, and then all of the twists and ties. So at first I trusted, the demo started, everything's kind of going fine. Insurance company sucks. They still to today, and it's been 3 months now, have not once called me or reached out to me with an email. I have to drive everything, no matter what questions I ask them, no matter how critical they are, I have to call. And each call is a good 2 hours to 4 hour call. And that's either trying to get a hold of somebody, not sit on hold for 45 minutes, but to finally get to that claims desk adjuster, right? Because you have to go through these layers. First, you have to talk to customer service in the claims department, and they'll give you all the nice little snippets, right? Oh, yeah, I know you can do this. But if you really want an answer, you got to get to the claims desk adjuster, and they are so hard to freaking get a hold of. And the good thing is my middle name is Tenacity. Learned that a long time ago on that day when I was 15, that tenacity was the only thing that got me the answers and got me the results that I wanted, is to stick in. So persistence and tenacity. So through all of this, the demo started, and all of a sudden the work stopped. And then I start hearing crap, from the contractor. Well, I'm extended, and I've already, with the money that I've already received from insurance and your deductible and stuff, I don't have the money to keep going. Well, that's not what you said when you took my contract, right? When you took my contract, you said, we work through all of this and we make it happen and we keep going. Yes, yeah, so it's not so. And there's nothing I can do. Sure, I can hire an attorney, but then I still got more time added on, right? And that takes time and time and time. So I have been living day, by crisis, by fire by fire. So the latest crisis, why my house still is not in repair mode 3 months later, is because in the middle, so not only when I started this claim, my insurance agent decided to put my husband's name first on the policy. I will note again, and I've said this in my postings, I saved the money to buy this house. It was off of my credit score that we bought this house. My husband's name is not even on the loan. My name is the only name on the loan. But of course, in the state of Texas, if you are considered married, even if you're separated, of which I am mentally and physically, but I am, you have to have both spouses because you're both liable for the loan, right? Community property. So the insurance company started out where they were sending everything in my husband's name. They were talking about nothing but my husband. Every time I call, they go, and who are you? And I go, you can imagine, right? You can imagine. I have schooled and I have said to them so many times, this is so sexist and so discriminatory. And so it just making a ton amount of hardship. So it took me 2 months to get that straight. And what forced that was at the end of April, I get a lovely letter from my mortgage servicer that has to endorse. So the insurance company writes the checks out for the settlements so I can pay the contractors. They were writing it out in my husband's name and the mortgage company's name, which meant I had to FedEx overnight if I wanted a quick return to the mortgage company, and I would have to pay for a return overnight label for them to get it back. And even though it was my name on the loan and his name on the check, they were fine with that. So at the end of April, I get this lovely letter saying, we've sold your loan and your new mortgage provider is XYZ. So I immediately, and I get this letter on a beautiful Saturday, so I can't call them and find out what kind of hardships this is going to cause me or what kind of hoops I have to jump through now. So Monday, the very first thing I did was call my mortgage company and said, so what happens with the endorsement of these checks now? Oh, if they write it in our name, for 30 days after the loan is sold, which was May 3rd, we will still endorse it. Okay, got it. All my calls are recorded on this. Everything I've done around this has been recorded. So lo and behold, I go off that later on that day, that same Monday. I call the new mortgage provider, servicer, and I explain the situation. I said, I know I'm not in your systems yet because you guys, these letters say it's not going to transition. My loan's not going to transition over until May 3rd, and I won't even have access to pay my loan or to get onto your website until May 7th. But I need to know, I told them what situation I was going through and that I needed to know their check endorsement process for claims. And I wanted to cry. They want all these documents and all this and all that and this notarized and that notarized. So I was glad that I was proactive, but it made me want to cry. And I was like, please, please, universe, let the next check come in my old mortgage service provider's name, and it'll just be a simple process, and boom, any other checks that have to be done after that, they'll be smaller, and if they have to go through this other company, okay, fine, I'll be prepared. I'll have everything ahead of the game. So last week, drilling the insurance company, where's that second check? It's been 3 weeks. Normally it takes 2 weeks to get approvals. I know you guys said because Texas has so many claims that you're running behind, so it's 3 weeks. So, I started calling on Monday of that third week. By Friday, I still didn't have any answers. And then by Friday, I'm pressing, and I'm talking, I press. If you heard the recordings of me and these people, you'd be like, holy crap, she's hard. Yeah, I am. When it comes to stuff like that, yeah, I am. I won't let you off the hook. You don't get to placate to me. You don't get to condescend to me, and you certainly don't get to be complacent and give non-answers on something that is my livelihood, my house. Right? You don't. So I find out last Friday or Wednesday of last week, the check's coming, and I should have it by Thursday or Friday morning. It comes on Thursday. I'm so excited. Repairs are going to start. Call the old mortgage company and say, hey, got my second check, ready to get it endorsed. Just want to double check that I'm sending it to the right place and everything's good. I get told flat out, no, we can't do that. We sold your loan. We don't have your loan anymore. And I go through the whole, well, what about the 30 days after? Even the new mortgage company said, I don't understand this. Yeah, they should carry it for 30 days. So I get a no there. I'm crushed. Because now this is going to delay. All I see is it's going to delay the repairs 3 or 4 more weeks. Mind you, it's May 16th. It's exactly 3 months since the claim was made. So what did my intuition tell me? 4 to 6 months. So I'm crushed. Call the new mortgage provider. We start going through all the documents and everything that they need, all the procedures they need. It's crazy. And I'm having to scan things, and I'm literally living out of my master bedroom. That day, when I got off the phone with the second mortgage provider, the current mortgage provider, the new one, I admit I started crying. I cried and I screamed. Why does it have to be so hard? Why do people lie? How do they not see the hardship that they're causing? It's really hard living like this and in limbo. And everybody else gets to have control over your life and what goes forward, and they're not really caring. And they're doing it sloppy. I had to demand a second adjuster, and I had to go through his 25-page supplemental, which is a list of all the work that has to be done. There were so many mistakes. I did an Excel spreadsheet and a PDF that had notes on it and highlighted and everything else. Flooring missing. Oh, gee, you're going to rip out my flooring, but you're not going to put it back? I had to rip it apart. It took me 16 hours in different things because of programs not working and me having to reload them and anyway, it was a hassle. So after I find out that I've got to go through this new mortgage company on that day, on Monday of last week, and pissed as hell. Like, how is it nobody else gives their life and work the same dedication, the same care? So go through the week of last week. I'm talking to my agent. I'm telling them. And I literally, at the end of that call, I'm crying. But she's like, oh, my God. I get everybody I talk to that by the time they get done hearing what's going on for me, they're like, this is like a perfect storm. You're in the middle of a claim. Your mortgage company sells your loan. Your insurance company's not talking to you. You're having to pull things left and right. You're having to do their work. And you're trying to build a business all at the same time. And mind you, 9 to 5, who do you think I'm talking to? Mortgage companies, insurance companies, just trying to get this freaking thing moving again. And then on Friday, I get an email saying from my agent, oh, well, we see your claim is closed. Really? Let me talk to you about what's not closed. So I had to call them. And I literally at the end of that call cried because the chick finally got it. And she was like, she had so much empathy. And she was like, I cannot believe this is happening for you. So Monday she said she's going to talk to the insurance company and they're going to try to get them to change it from a closed status and really start giving me more help. I don't bet on that, But I know that I got to make it through this. And it's like every time I'm ready to bust out into this world and be the greatness that I am. And I'll tell you my statement. It's an unspoken statement, but it's a mantra and a statement that I made for myself that I am the greatness for all humanity from infancy and beyond, that I stand for the greatness for every single soul from infancy and beyond to be their authentic self, their soul, because goodness lives there. Goodness lives there. Love lives there. Peace lives there. Peace lives there. Harmony lives there. Everything outside of that is just the contrast to it, and that's what we feel. So the thing is, I have to plow through. I have to plow through and I have to believe. And I'll tell you that yesterday I started thinking, some other thoughts started coming into my mind instead of why is this so hard? It started coming into my mind of, I have faith in why I need to have patience through this. There's something great happening on the other side of this. I needed to remodel this house so that I could end up selling it in the next 2 to 3 years. And I wasn't sure how I was going to come up with the money. So if this is the way it's getting remodeled and the patience that I need, or maybe it's that I have such a valid lawsuit against these entities that are really making my life hell, and they are. Maybe it's a lawsuit and I get a windfall from that, and that windfall's going to, I don't know, I don't know. But that's what, it's all I really want to say is that often, it's not often, at least in my life, every single time I step up to my greatness and I say, here it is, world, unadulterated, completely raw, real, vulnerable, and naked. The powers of opposite want to come in with a sledgehammer and hit me in the gut. Take the wind out of me. And I get that happens to a lot of us. And oftentimes we'll move into complacency because, we want that comfortable world. I want that comfortable world, but that comfortable world has rarely existed for me. I have my comforts and I know what complacency and apathy is for me. Apathy probably doesn't exist for me. It seems very incongruent with who I am. But I understand comfort and complacency, and nothing's ever grown there. Peace maybe every now and then might be seen, but peace is something that shouldn't be fleeting. And that's why I coach on self-awareness, because when you know thyself deeply and authentically, inner peace is an anchor. It never goes away. Nothing sways it. Nothing moves it. So anyway, I wanted to share that because I blurted out things that have been going on, but I'm still sitting here in a house with, and to get some sheetrock put on, some tape and floating in some areas, but then it just stopped. And I sit here day in and day out, still focused on business, still focused on the greatness that I want to create in this world or be in this world. It's not about achieving it, it's about being it. It's about flowing with it. And just like a leaf flowing down, a river that started off at just a little trickle of a creek somewhere, and it starts getting bigger and bigger, and then it gets into rapids, right? And it gets tossed around, and then there's a waterfall. But somewhere in that time, that leaf's just floating. And and I think about that leaf and I think, does it scream when it hits the rocks? Maybe it does. Seconds later, it's back into the calm, peaceful flow and the current. And it's the trick of not letting the current take you away, like sweep you away and under, but instead of flowing with, instead you're flowing with the current and you're embracing all the things that come with it. And I kind of see life that way. And it may be that way until I die. I don't know. Maybe it's always. But I just know that when you take on greatness, and especially your own greatness in the world, don't expect an easy path. Don't expect the road to just roll out in front of you and it's some kind of soft, cushy carpet, soft to your step. No, don't expect that. Because you'll fool yourself. And then you'll turn around when the hardship comes and you'll go, this must not be meant for me. Must not be what I should be doing. Wrong. Stop. Listen to your soul. And then surrender into the peace of flowing in it to your greatness. Because you're great at this moment. No matter how that you as a leaf gets tossed around, you're great at that moment. So anyway, great Sunday afternoon thoughts. At least I think so. Got a lot to talk to you guys about. But anyway, peace out. Bye.